Hello everyone, my name is Gangesh Shukla. I'm a second year medical student and I have with me Shurendra Shukla, age 26 years old. I'll be performing sensory system examination. So let's begin. We will test for the pain sensation, checking the function of the spinothalamic tracts. With the stick portion of a broken cotton swab and also occasionally substitute the blunt end for the point. Ask the patient if the sensation is sharp or dull. Also ask them to make comparisons whether they feel the same or different. We will test for the light touch, checking both sensory pathway. With a fine wisp of cotton, touch the skin lightly, avoiding pressure. Ask the patient to respond whenever a touch is felt and to compare one area with another. Now we test for vibration sensation, checking the posterior columns of the sensory system. Use a relatively low pitch tuning fork of 128 Hz. Tap it on the heel of the hand and place it firmly over a distal interphalangeal joint of the patient's finger and over the interphalangeal joint of the big toe. Ask the patient feels. If you are not sure whether the patient is feeling pressure or vibration, ask the patient to tell you when the vibration stops. Then touch the tuning fork to stop it from vibrating and confirm this change with the patient. If vibration sense is impaired, proceed to more proximal bony prominences like wrist, elbow, medial malleus, shin, patella, anterior superior iliac spine, spinous process, and clavicle. Now we test for the position sensation, also checking the posterior column of the sensory system. Grabs the patient big toe, holding it by its side between your thumb and index finger, then pull it away from other toes. Demonstrate up and down as you move the patient toe clearly upward and downward. Then with the patient's eyes closed, ask the patient to say up or down when moving the toe, large toe in a small arc. Repeat the test several times on each side. If position sense is impaired, move proximally to test the ankle joint. In a similar fashion, test position in the fingers, moving proximally if indicated to the metacarpophalangeal joint, wrist and elbow. Stereognosis refers to the ability to identify an object by feeling it. With the patient's eyes closed, place a big coin in one hand and a small coin in the other hand, and ask the patient to identify by sensing which coin is bigger and which coin is smaller. Number identification. If arthritis or other condition prevent the patient from manipulating an object well enough to identify it, test the ability to identify numbers. With the blunt end of a pen or pencil, draw a large number in the patient's palm. A normally able person can identify most such numbers. 2-point discrimination. Using two ends of an open paper clip or two pins, touch a finger pad in two places simultaneously. Alternate the double stimulus irregularly with a 1-point touch. Find the minimum distance at which the patient can discriminate from 2 points. Normally, the distance should be less than 5 mm on the finger pads. Point localization. With the patient eye closed, briefly touch a point on the patient's skin, then ask the patient to open both eyes and point to the place touched. Normally, a person can do so accurately. Lesions of the sensory cortex impair the ability to localize points accurately. Extension. With the patient eye closed, stimulate one side or simultaneously stimulate corresponding areas on both sides of the body. Ask where the patient feels your touch. With lesions of the sensory cortex, only one stimulus may be recognized. The stimulus to the side opposite the damaged cortex is extinguished. With the patient's elbow should be partially flexed and the forearm pronated with palm down. Place your thumb or finger firmly on the biceps tendon. Aim the strike with the reflex hammer directly through your digit toward the bicep tendon. Observe flexion at the elbow and watch for and feel the contraction of the biceps muscle. Flex the patient arm at the elbow with palm toward the body and pull it slightly across the chest. Strike the tricep tendon with a direct blow directly behind and just above the elbow. Watch for contraction of the tricep muscle and extension at the elbow. The patient hands should rest on the abdomen or the lap with the forearm partly pronated. Strike the radius with the point or flat edge of the reflex hammer about 1 to 2 inches above the wrist. Watch for flexion and supination of the forearm. With the patient sitting and the knee flexed, tap the patellar tendon just below the patella. Note the contraction of the quadriceps with extension at the knee. There are two options for examining the supine patient. Supporting both knees at once allows to assess small differences between quadriceps reflex by repeatedly testing one reflex and then the other. If supporting both legs is uncomfortable, you can replace your supporting arm under the patient's leg. With the patient sitting, partially dorsiflex the foot at the ankle. The patient to relax. Strike the Achilles tendon and watch and feel for plantar flexion at the ankle. Also note the speed of relaxation after muscular contraction. When the patient is lying down, flex one leg at both hip and knee and rotate it externally so that the lower leg rests across the opposite shin. Then dorsiflex the foot at the ankle and strike the Achilles tendon. If the reflex is hyperactive, test for ankle clonus. Support the knee in a partly flexed position with your other hand dorsiflex and plantar flex the foot a few times while encouraging the patient to relax. Then sharply dorsiflex the foot and maintain it in dorsiflexion. Look and feel for rhythmic oscillation between dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. With the pointed end of the reflex hammer, stroke the lateral aspect of the sole from the heel to the ball of the foot, curving medially across the ball. Use the lightest stimulus needed to provoke a response, but increased firmness if necessary. Closely observe movement of the big toe, normally plantar flexion. With the patient supine, place your hand behind the patient's head and flex the knee forward, if possible, until the chin touches the chest. In Brudzinski sign, as you flex the neck, watch the hip and knee in reaction to your maneuver. Normally, they should remain relaxed and motionless. In Kernig sign, flex the patient leg at both the hip and the knee and then slowly extend the leg and strengthen the knee. Discomfort behind the knee during full extension is normal, but it should not produce pain. Pain and increased resistance to knee extension are a positive Kernig sign. With the patient supine position, raise the patient's relax and straighten leg, flexing the thigh at the hip Assess the degree of elevation at which pain occurs, the quality and distribution of the pain, and the effect of foot dorsiflexion. Tightness or discomfort in the buttocks or hamstring is the common during these maneuvers.